real kids conspiracy. Juvenile judges sold kids to private prisons in exchange for $2.8 million in bribes. Here's how.
For entertainment purposes only. I am a crazy old lady, and none of this is probably true.
Luzerne, Pennsylvania, like most places, had a public juvenile detention facility. But an attorney, Robert Powell, and a developer, Robert Mercer, saw an opportunity to make a lot of money if they could convert the public one into a private one and then got paid for every single juvenile delinquent that was sent there. And so the first thing they had to do was to get rid of the existing one. So they contacted two judges. First was Mark Clavarella, and then the second one was Michael Conahan. These two men were judges who ran the juvenile justice system in that county. And they persuaded them, with the help of a $2.1 million bribe, to get rid of the existing facility so they could build this new private one. Once they got to prison, now they needed inmates. You see, if a public juvenile detention facility is empty, that's a good thing. That means that the system is working. But if a private one is, that means that the stockholders are losing money. They needed a steady supply of lots of juvenile delinquents. And so they told the judge that for every child that they sent to their facility, the judges would receive a kickback. Motivated by profit, the judges turned their courtrooms into a mockery of justice, just a mill to get as many kids into the system as quickly as they can. They often denied them due process. Over 280 of them never ever talked to a lawyer. The kid was handcuffed and sent off because he had made fun of his vice principal on his MySpace. In total, these two judges sent over 2,400 juveniles to juvenile detention facilities in exchange for $2.8 million in bribes. And this went on for years. A number of complaints were filed between 2004 and 2008 with the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board, but they didn't investigate any of it. In 2008, the Philadelphia-based Juvenile Law Center filed a petition with the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania saying you've got to look into what's going on, and the Supreme Court did nothing. But then came another terrible judge, Ann Licata, who was just a horrible human being. She would order her staff to run all kinds of personal errands for them. She showed obvious favor to lawyers that she had personal relationships with, and she would publicly demean both her staff and other lawyers in front of people. And a hearing was set to disbar her and kick her off of the bench. But at the hearing, she said, you shouldn't be blaming me because what I'm doing is nothing compared to what Clavarella and Conahan are doing. And she was asked, what do you mean? And she spilt the beans on everything. Robert Powell was disbarred. In 2009, he pled guilty to tax evasion and went to prison for 18 months. And he was also required to pay $4.75 million in restitution. Robert Mercer went to prison for a year and 2 weeks and was required to pay $2.15 million in restitution. But like with Powell, the money didn't go to the victims. Instead, it went to Children's Health Organization. Judge Mark Cinderella went to trial and was convicted on 12 different counts, for which he received 28 years in prison. And Conahan pled guilty, and he got 17.5 years in prison, but got out 6 years early when COVID hit and they were trying to empty the jail. That's ironic. Lawsuits were filed on the behalf of some of the 2,400 victims, resulting in a $288 million verdict against them. But likely the victims whose lives were destroyed by these men will see very little of that because they don't have the money to pay the judgment. And we are left with the lesson that when you privatize public institutions and make profit more important than the societal good, well, then things like this happen. Because this isn't just in Pennsylvania.
You need to be. Do you remember me? Do you remember me? Do you remember my son? An all-star wrestler? He's good. He shot himself in the heart. You scumbag.
A heart